Good. So I think it's time to get started. So good afternoon, everyone, both here in Brno, in Turku, and everywhere else. We are very happy to have this online presentation by a colleague, Eeva Boström, from the University of Turku. She is a teacher of business French, and she's going to speak about her comparison between courses taught in French and plurilingual courses. So over to her, and thank you very much for being with us virtually.
Thank you. Yes, I will present a very small study, and the idea is to talk about emotions and feelings. The title, I Have to Leave My Comfort Zone, comes from my French classes, where I talk about the comfort zone, exactly that. It's not always nice to learn and to work, and especially teaching French for foreigners, there is the pronunciation part, which might be scaring for some of them. So, introduction. First of all, in Finland, the language situation is such that we have two official languages, Finnish and Swedish, and these are taught in the school. In the university education, these languages are also part of the curricula. I teach mainly at the Turku School of Economics, where the amount of languages is 4. There are the two nation languages, Finnish and Swedish, and then 2 foreign languages, which are obligatory for the students. The language choice is normally such that they take English as the first one, and then for the second foreign language, they can choose between German, French, Spanish, Russian. There is also courses in Japanese, Chinese, and Italian. We have created multilingual courses. We have 4 for the moment, where different languages are combined. For example, German and Swedish, where the idea is to take advantage of the close relationship between those languages. Well, language learning and emotions. Let's start with the language awareness. Crucial approach. And here we have the idea of multilingual education, and the quote is from Ulrike Gessner. Here it's about metalinguistic awareness, the capability to talk about languages and language learning. Focus attention on language as an object. Think abstractly about it. Well, business. Often it is thought that business, it's just money and hard doing, no emotions. And well, these last years, the point of emotions is coming stronger and stronger. Here are some ideas from Nina Nummela, professor in international business in Turku School of Economics. She and her team have studied the causes of mergers and acquisitions, or what they have caused, changes, yes, naturally, concrete ones, but also the emotional side. This is often left aside. There are manuals on how to do operative things, but no manuals on how to deal with the emotions of the individuals. She mentions emotions like frustration, uncertainty, fear, anger, sadness. They take too much space often. Positive emotions like joy, relief, pride, and satisfaction are not often taken advantage of. So this is the business context, the language. Well, let's start with definitions. What is an emotion? What is a feeling? Conscious mental reaction, such as anger or fear, subjectively experienced as a strong feeling. So you can see there is a mix of words, emotion, feeling. It's a strong one. And then it refers to feeling, and the feeling is awareness, recognition of an emotional state. Well, I'm not a psychologist. This is not a psychological study. So I let my students use both of the words, and they wrote most of their answers in Finnish. And in Finnish, the word tunne means both emotion and feeling. So when I ask them about their feelings, emotions, I just use this one word. There is a lot of literature on emotional intelligence, and this is the short idea about what it is. So it's the capacity to observe emotions in oneself and in the others, and to make use of it. And there you have the word la conscience de soi, to have a little bit French. Self-awareness. So first of all, recognize, express, and to see one's own strengths and weaknesses in a positive, realistic way. So we have perceived emotions. We read this from the bottom up. We have to understand emotions. Where do they come from? And we have to do something with ourselves. When they come, we have to regulate ourselves and manage. Then we come into the social skills. Understand others, motivation, and so on. Case study number 1. This is a plurilingual course which I have with my colleague Joachim Schlabach. He's in the picture here. We have had this course since 2007, and last autumn it was our 5th trip to Switzerland. So it's a course which combines German and French. The students have to be strong in one of the languages. B1 would be nice, so that the course can function. And the other one, it can be beginner's level or naturally more. We have seminars in Finland. And then we had a 5-day trip in Switzerland. The objectives of the course are the plurilingual proficiency, the awareness, and the strategies. We encourage students to use, transfer, code switching, mediation, ask for help, and so on. They got guided tasks. The tasks were clearly structured. Do this, reflect on that. They wrote a portfolio, reflections after each training unit. And in Switzerland, we did interviews in groups in Finnish, their mother tongue, so that they could express themselves more easily. Sorry. We train code switching. We are language teachers, and of course, we focus on pure, proper, lovely language. But in the business world, as they say, the job has to be done, the message has to be put through, and it has to be done effectively. Code switching might be the key to that. We learn, we teach how to ask for help, to get out from this idea, if I don't know anything, then I stay quiet, I silent. No, ask for help. And this year, last year, 2019, we added the questions about emotions. The idea of emotions came partly also from this. Here you see beautiful young students smiling. We have no idea about what they think, what they feel. Do we do the right things? Is it cool? Is it not cool? We just teach. And if we don't ask, we don't know. And often you know as teachers, when you ask, was it nice? Yes, it was okay. And that's not enough feedback for preparing new courses, new ideas. Results. In the seminars, the first meeting, I just asked, what do you feel? They had a pencil and a paper and they wrote. They had never done this before. They didn't know that they would do it. So it was really, what does she want? Why do we have to do this for our teachers? But they wrote, not many things, but there were negative emotions. They were nervous, afraid of mistakes, and then also the social part of being in a big group, having to speak. Are the others better than I am? But also positive ones. They were happy to understand, because this German-French course is only in German and French. No Finnish, no English. So they are in a difficult situation and they are out of their comfort zone. But they felt active, relaxed, and this is lovely, not nervous anymore. Somebody had been nervous in the beginning but felt better. And this word came several times. They felt cozy, être à l'aise. In Finnish, we have a word which is kotoisa, and it means really like feeling at home, feeling good. And then I put this one here because this is what they felt in the beginning. Somebody wanted to laugh when they had to write about emotions. It was like, what does this have to do with language? From this step onwards during the course, and we have to remember it's a short one, 3 weeks in Finland and 1 in Switzerland, so we couldn't have that much progress, but they got used to it. And in Switzerland, sometimes they came and said, hey, I have feelings today. The feeling of today is. So this was the first time. And the second question was how to recognize what's happening. There were several small details, and one was where your emotion an obstacle for working. Many of them said no. Somebody said yes, because I was afraid, I was stressed, I couldn't think, it could have been better if, and some weren't sure. And when I prepared this presentation, I thought about us teachers. Are we able to talk about our emotions? If I ask you, how was your last lesson? What did you feel? Can you verbalize what you felt? So, did you make use of your emotions? I put no in gray because I don't know if it's positive or negative. It's a subjective idea, but 7 said yes. And what did they do? They said that they had courage, they used humor, they were conscious about using humor, they had a positive attitude, and it's okay to make mistakes. So this is what's happening in their head while we are just looking at young students learning languages in a business context. One said that she or he didn't understand the question, which is also interesting because this is not a simple thing. In the learning portfolios, there were less occurrences than expected, and it's difficult to describe these emotions. There were mainly things like this. frustrated when I wasn't understood, happy when I could speak, and so on. Case study 2 is from beginners French classes, 2 different groups. And I won't give you any statistical results, no beautiful graphs. I will give you thoughts. These were open questions, like how do you feel? Describe it with your own words. And these were done before and after an exercise. Not both always, either both. And I never told my students when we will do it. So they are done on the spot, right at the moment of the feeling. I thought that maybe I could capture what they feel. 2.1, pronunciation. Beginners level students did a long recording of their own reading from their book. Then I asked them to shut the book and shut their eyes and listen to themselves. We are in the language lab and they have these headphones. The whole class silent. Already this, when you ask young students to stay silent without their smartphone, is interesting. So they weren't allowed to touch anything. Here are the answers. These are quotes, which I have translated from Finnish. And we get words like relaxing, calming, I was calm and concentrated, good exercise. Well, these results are biased by the fact that it's Friday morning, 8:30. So I had several answers with tired. What do we teachers do when students are tired? Nice variation. And then we have this really strong feeling, unpleasant to listen to my own voice. Sometimes frustrating to listen to my own voice because it sounds terrible. I don't know that they have these ideas because they sit in the class and they smile or they look neutral, but they feel frustrated. It's unpleasant. And this, for me, I don't know if this is naive or too simplistic, but for me, it was a big thing to really get these words on the feelings and to think about this as a teacher when we do like, well, this has always been done like this and now you have to. And no, there might be so many things crossing their heads. There is somebody who stayed focused. And then they have these practical observations. I mumbled. I pronounced too quickly. I think this is linguistic awareness, talking about the language, the doing, about the exercises. Somebody had a better memory trace when listening, eyes shut. Somebody said it's worse. He or she wants the book. And this, it felt good to calm down with the exercises. Then a second group, which had its first word test ever in the class. And you see red and green. They are both there. These are translated from Finnish. Well, they are tired again this autumn, last autumn. Well prepared, alert, not nervous. And this is lovely. I'm not nervous because the Swedish word test went well. So relying on another language, maybe the French class will cheer me up. Do my best, confidently. So you see what I showed in the mini theory part, these strengths and weaknesses. This is like that, a little bit stressed. Okay, but I will do my best. So see both sides and make use of them. I don't know if thoughtful is positive or negative, might be both. Somebody said melancholic. I don't know if she or he meant depressed. A bad morning isn't a feeling, but it's the state in which the student was when he or she came to the class. After the test, so this is the same word test, I asked them, give your comments on the test. How did it go? And then I said, give your comments on future learning. And we get really good. And there the verb I feel I have learned, confused, proud. And this is also lovely. Proud of myself that I remember that many words, because learning a new language might sometimes be difficult. Yes. Irritating. Look, 2 words. Student mixed up 2 words. It's irritating. I couldn't know that if I just watch my class, that it might be this level of, they are very demanding and high level of wanting to do the best. These are, I marked them with this color because I like these. Make use of nervousness in the meaning of not being afraid. I can use it positively. I'm nervous, but I can make something of it. This is quite general. Because I feel good, I know that I studied enough, because this is the answer. There was the question, did I study enough? After the test, the student said, yes, because I feel good. And this is also nice. Trust oneself, even in spite of the feeling, and not care about that. So I can make a link between the mergers and acquisitions and the feelings that have to be used and dealt with, and we have the same in languages. So when we think about the business world, we have the pressure from the business, and then we have the pressure of the language. We could teach students to cope with feelings. It could help in those both ways. Then the last example, I made the students do a very demanding task. One morning I said, you will prepare now a small talk in the group. We had quite big groups, and you will start talking without preparation. They didn't prepare themselves beforehand. It was difficult. But I said, use all your applications. Take your smartphone, you have your dictionaries, everything. And what did I get as answers? Oppressive. The brain gets locked. Not nice to speak in a big group. I felt insufficient. Unpleasant. I was a little bit amazed about the strongness of this vocabulary, like oppressive. And when I looked at my class, they were just working and doing. I could notice that it wasn't easy, but they were doing. But in their heads, their brains were locked. And here somebody had used a strategy. I said, take your phones. It was okay. And then I asked, I compared, I had this difficult task, and after that next lesson, I had a very normal traditional class with text, vocabulary, grammar, and exercises, really the normal traditional one. And then I asked, compare these two. And then I said, well, it's good to use both methods. And then you see how they divide these feelings. Somebody felt confused, even a little bit fear, but I did it. So yes, the positive feeling. Somebody likes to listen passively. Well, it's not the best way of learning French, I imagine, but this is opinion. The traditional teaching feels familiar and safe. And I would like to stop here. We teach in the modern world where everything goes fast. There's a lot of techniques. Everything is fancy and lovely and so on. And we think maybe that we have to be like that. But when I look at the answers that I have, students need a feeling of safety, feeling that they are in a peaceful environment where they can train without fear. Here we have again, the exercises are good, but they are disgusting. And then there is somebody for the purpose of learning where we had to produce small talk was better than the traditional one. We had to come out of our comfort zone. Now, I have talked about the comfort zone. That's why they use the word. But this is interesting. So you see both. And this is what we have to cope with as language teachers, how to mix enough challenge, enough safety. My conclusion, the students in case 1 had all 3 levels that I showed. They were aware, they monitored themselves, and they used the social skills because it was a study trip. So in their answers, it was possible to see that they had this social level, like when I talked with the waitress, she understood me, I felt good. I didn't have that in the case 2 because they weren't really in the social situation yet. When they did the small talk exercise, they were feeling inside themselves. Case 2, the awareness increased clearly. This, we have to remember that the study number 1 was just a short course. And the second one, I could test them several times, and the teaching was longer. There was several weeks between. And with the input of these ideas, I could see a change also in the way of thinking. They got more aware and they started to report on them. Like somebody said in the study 3 portfolio, I even now think more about my emotions and in what kind of situations I get them. I think this is nice, but still less occurrences than expected. It's often the fact that it's easier to say that the university was nice and the colleagues were nice. Okay, but what did you feel? Well, I felt that they were nice. But, you know, when I started analyzing the data, I thought, how to draw a line. Because we can argue this is not an emotion, this is something. And if I want to do this again, I think then I won't do it like this anymore. This was the pilot. And now I know that without guiding, without structured, I don't know, questionnaires or questions, this is what I get. I don't know what is your experience. Have you tried similar things? It would be interesting to know. This is my conclusion. And then I'm almost finished with this presentation. I took a few ones for the future teaching. And as I said, we think that everything has to be very fancy and bling bling. And so maybe, but you have to remember that I teach in the business context. A calm tempo, a slow tempo, and a gentle teaching are needed. There are quotes, direct quotes. It was a difficult exercise, the small talk one, but the students said, but good to do it also later on. They didn't say, we don't want these terrible exercises anymore. We can do them also later on. A feeling of safety is central for learning a language, especially oral skills. And this became very clear from this material. So as I said in the beginning, learning, teaching French, pronunciation especially needs an environment where they can feel secure and not lose their face. So I think that my material confirms what has been done a long time. The human being is the same as before, not wanting to feel stressed or bad or insecure or so, trying to keep up with the situation. And the students I teach will go out in the business world. Well, they need so many talents And if they can get a little bit of help from a language class with dealing with emotions, then I'm happy. And this last one is also a quote. And I finish with that. I say, thank you. It's good to get out of the comfort zone. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much for a very interesting observation on how to involve emotions into teaching and how to deal with them. We are ready for questions, I think. We can either do them here in our room or also using the YouTube channel, live chat. So maybe we can start here. People in Brno might start with asking a couple of questions. Is there a question here in Brno? I can ask the first question then. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Yeah. I really liked your idea of the necessity to balance, how much we challenge our students and how much reassurance we give them. And I would like to ask, how are you able to do that for all the students, because I'm sure that they differ in their needs. Yeah, that some of them are even more shy, or some of them are ready to challenge and step out of their comfort zone more easily. So would you have some recommendations for this?
Not really. And I noticed when working with the data that this is really a mini thing that I did, and I don't know that much about it. And it's more about the feeling. So you can see in your class that somebody is really extrovert, and I think they don't need the encouraging perhaps as much. But I try to do with the students that I encourage all of them, like really good, and this was nice. And I also try not to say, well, that's wrong. I said, well, maybe we might have to try another way of doing it or something, and encouraging them. And then what I do, the problem is when you have an extrovert one, the person can anyhow be shy at the same time and just trying to cover the uncertainty. I often tell them that mistakes aren't bad. We learn from mistakes, and yeah, I think it's the way of seeing that mistakes are not a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, I think you did. Yeah, it's important to establish a safe atmosphere for everyone, and then probably touch more on the students who realize need more support. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
And one thing, in the business context, we have a lot of data on the fact that in the business world, the grammatical correctness is not the point. The job has to be done.
Mm-hmm.
So the written language has to be extremely clear and good. But when you communicate, like in my oral exercises, you just communicate. And then you get better and better.
Okay. Yes. I would think that this might support more questions, because they don't have to be necessarily grammatically correct. So may I have one more question about the trip? I really like very much the combination of classes in Finland and then really experiential learning in Switzerland. What would you think of a compensation? Should this not be possible? Traveling is not that easy these days. So what could supplement this? How could you, what would be alternatives to this cultural experience?
This is a good question. We haven't thought about that much yet, but the idea with the study trip is the authenticity of the feeling, being on the spot. How do you do that with Zoom? I see you there, and I have a conversation with you, but I'm not really there. So we don't know yet. And we hope that we can travel because the trip is planned for 2021. I don't know if the virtual version can replace a real trip.
Yeah. I think we need at least one more question, so as we don't end up with pessimistic tone.
Okay, so
Please, yes, go ahead.
So how do you incorporate your knowledge? Because obviously the first commandment of being a teacher is know thy students. So how do you incorporate your knowledge about how they feel about certain things in your lessons?
Mm-hmm. Oh, did you hear the question, or shall I repeat it?
Could you repeat, please?
Yes. The question was whether how are you going now, yes, to implement what you have gained, the knowledge you have gained about your students' emotions into your teaching.
I think that I will keep on with this calm, slower tempo that I use in teaching, and I try not to think that I don't use enough technique, enough everything, because these answers support the idea that the students need the human contact and the feeling of presence and safety. So I think that I will use this to have a good balance between the grammar exercises and the technique, what we use, and then the presence in the classes when the corona is hopefully over. And I think I will go on asking students regularly about the difficulty of the exercises, and not only just deciding that I think this is good, so it has to be, asking and letting them participate in the structuring of the course. I do that in my written communication classes, that we decide what we want to do and write, and I think I will do this also on other levels, more often. And one other point, what I do is sometimes after an exercise, I say debriefing, and they sit in groups and they debrief and say, now you let the others know what you felt. And then they can say, well, my pronouncing is terrible. And the others say the same thing. And it helps, because when they don't know what the others think, they think that they are the worst. And then I also ask them to say one positive thing about what they did. So going on with this, and well, the results made that I would like to know more about this, because I don't know. And I thought it would have been nice to hear if you have some ideas or experiences, what you have done. I think, is there time for that? Does the audience have any experience of dealing with the emotions?
Well, I don't know. As I said in one of the previous sessions, I have a tendency to scare people. I've made a lot of students cry. During presentations, let's just make it clear, during presentations, because sometimes I stop them, because the presentations are supposed to be spoken, not read. And students, so in a classroom setting, they just read. And now during the pandemic, they pretend that they're speaking when they're really reading. So this is what brings the tears sometimes.
I'm not sure whether you
how dealing with
with the sound, and also I'm not sure how we are doing in terms of time. So I'm thinking about how to make this conversation continue, and we can either use the chat here, because Katarzyna wanted to share her experience with dealing with emotions in connection to presenting. This is definitely an experience we have, a stressful, as an example of a stressful situation, and how to handle that.
Your teaching style to your students' needs and certain, I don't know if I would call them disability, challenges that they face.
Yeah. So I think this is a good partner to speak to, Eeva.
Okay. How shall I do? Shall I stop my share?
You can either do that, yes, or well, you will find the on our conference website. There is a link to the streams, and then each room on the YouTube channel has a live chat where we can continue. Or of course, we can also use our Facebook profile if you prefer. That could be also a good communication channel. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know who wanted to discuss.
I will try to make you two connect. Yeah.
Okay,
It will be Polish-Finnish exchange.
okay, thank
So
you.
thank you very much again. Best regards to Turku, and thank you very much.
Thank you for listening. Thank you.